Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers.
Hey, who is that?
It is me, Beau Lake, and
Hi,
it is
Beau.
you, Mark Muncy.
Yes. Somebody mentioned to me the other day they missed our old. Hi, I'm Mark Muncy, and
Hi,
like,
I'm
I'm
Mark
like,
Muncy,
who
and
actually
I'm
missed
Erika
that?
Lance,
I mean, I'd
and
rather
this
jump
is
right in.
Eerie Travels.
Yeah, I'd rather jump right into the stories. Come on, we're giving you more story this way.
Maybe I'll put it in at one point. I'll just like slip it in and make it. You guys say that like 4 times before the episode starts, and we'll see if they still like it.
Make up for lost time. Oh yeah, I'm sure that'll go well. All right, travelers, that's it. Make your comments. Leave your comments on the YouTube or whatever, what you prefer. So we'd appreciate it.
We need a poll.
We need a poll. We should probably put that up on the Discord. So see what happens. Oh my gosh. So how have you been?
Oh, I've been. It's getting darker and darker every second.
Yep. Solstice was just a short time ago. Erika is on her journeys beyond. So she's on family and all this fun stuff, family, friends. She's actually taking holidays. What's that?
She's like on a vacation.
Yeah. We're legit. We're you and I, man. We plug along. It's just the way.
We just keep going.
I had my vacation, but mine was like more sick leave than anything. But
that doesn't count, Mark. That doesn't count as vacation.
It did. It felt like it to me, So. Oh my gosh! But anyway, what you came up with this one? You wanted.
I sure did.
This subject has been like driving you to want to discuss. And I was like, I know a little bit about this, that a thing I think you didn't know about. So I'll bring that up at the appropriate point. But travelers, this is going to be a Beau-led one. We've had a few of those now, and I hope you've enjoyed them. I've enjoyed the heck out of them.
God, I hope they've enjoyed them. I don't know if we've gotten angry emails about Beau-led episodes, but but so far,
thanks, Ron.
Yeah, Ron. My only critic has been Ron. So
Ron's name lives in infamy on here. So
today's episode is about one of my favorite topics, which is demons and exorcisms and Indiana.
Well, those three go together like 3 men in a barrel there. So
like peanut butter and jelly. Indiana and exorcism.
Butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Yeah, this is.
So this story
in Indiana. All right, go for it. Beau.
That should be the title.
All right, there we go.
So this story takes place in November 2011 in Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana. Sorry.
I always hear a lot of stuff about Gary, Indiana, about how it is not the greatest place to go.
It's gone downhill since the days of if they'd only listened to the Music Man, they wouldn't let that pool hall get built there, and they got trouble.
I mean, nothing is more related to a hive of villainy than a pool hall. So they should have listened. So Gary, Indiana is sort of this place that always comes up in like Reddit threads about places you shouldn't visit. And I think it's just, because it's kind of like a poor area. It's like a place you happen to drive through. It's not often your destination. But this is where our story takes place. And it takes place in the home of a woman named Latoya Emmons. And she lived there with her children, who are ages 7, 9, and 12. And her mom, whose name was Rosa. So they move into a house on Carolina Street. Mark, can you describe what the house looks like for our friends at home?
Yeah, it's kind of just a normal looking I would say, geez, how to put it. It's like a Midwest small home, right? It's got
Yeah.
it's a single story, but it's got kind of an arched roof. Got the with the little small window at the top. Um, it's built to survive the snows of the Great Lakes. It's solid paneling, white house. Nothing
Yeah, it's very
special.
boxy.
Got a
It
glassed in front porch area,
yeah.
and that's basically it.
I wouldn't know if it would be called like a shotgun house because it is kind of like a straight
Yeah.
shot from the front to the
It's
back.
like one of those old Sears houses, but not the multi-story.
Yes.
It's like the
Yeah.
basic. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a
It's
cinder block
very
house. Yeah,
yeah, it's a very normal house. It doesn't look like anything of note would have
no.
happened there at all. It looks like any house you'd pass on the street and be like, "Oh, that looks like a nice house." You'd see kids playing outside with all their toys and stuff.
Mm.
Um, so on in December of 2011, the family start noticing that there's an influx of black flies on the glassed in porch.
Yep.
But it was December and flies are not
Not common.
around.
They
Yeah.
they're like the mosquitoes. They go to hell in the winter and where they belong. But these have brought hell back here. So it's
Which is a
obviously
good
hadn't seen Amityville at this point. So otherwise
yes.
they'd have known.
Well, it kind of does seem like they did kind of have a little like
An idea.
inkling that something that flies were a bad look.
Yeah, definitely bad. So.
Yeah. Because like you said, Amityville, there are a lot of flies in that house, and it was like uh showed that there was a demonic entity in the house. And so I decided to look up why flies. So I did a little bit of a deep dive on Catholicism and Catholic doctrine.
Fun.
Because nothing gives me greater joy than to learn about Catholicism, I guess. Seems like recently I've been doing that a lot.
You've been doing that an awful lot. I think, not saying anything, but
when people read my book coming out in 2025, they will, I hope, they will also learn more about Catholicism because it takes part in my book too.
Is it because we made you binge watch Evil?
Yeah, I think that's the reason, and I should put that on the forward for my book because of Evil.
Thank you,
right.
Michelle and Robert King. Okay.
Yeah. According to Catholic doctrine, flies are a sign of temptation, sin, and demonic influence because flies are drawn to things like blood, death, and dung.
Mm-hmm.
Flies were also one of the plagues that came down when the Pharaoh denied Moses's request to let the Israelites go. And I know we discussed a little bit about demons a couple episodes ago about like Beelzebub, who's the prince of demons.
That's his symbol.
Yes, he is known as the Lord of the Flies.
Yes.
Which is a very cool title.
And he is the prince of demons, so yeah.
Yes. Some exorcists report that flies are seen at exorcisms where he is the named demon. The named demon, like the demon who has possessed the person. And Beelzebub is, of course, not his real name.
No.
It is a mispronunciation.
There's reasons for that, as we discussed also, that they purposely miswrote their names from the Testament of Solomon. So,
but I know his real name, and it is Beelzebul.
Yeah,
which is kind of cooler.
It's actually Beelzebul, but yeah,
Beelzebul,
which is also Phoenician, Canaanite. There's a lot of different translations. It could be pronounced a lot of different ways. So
yeah. And when they say like Beelzebub, that like translates to the Lord of Dung, which is mean. They're not being very nice to our boy.
Hey, just call him BB.
BB. Yeah. It's our boy BB. So besides the flies happening, there's starting to be other like paranormal activity going on in the house in Gary, Indiana. There were footsteps, there was creaking doors, shadow figures pacing in the living room, and a boot print was found in the living room too. So Latoya, who is the mother, she also alleges that she was choked by an unseen force in the house.
Never pleasant.
No, like the idea of staying in a place after you've been choked in it sounds terrifying, because I'm sure you never ever feel safe again.
No.
And it only gets worse for Latoya's family from here, because things start happening with the children.
Ooh.
So the older son, who's 9, he is thrown across the room by a unseen force. There's no like evidence about like what precipitated it, what happened after, just that he was thrown by something that was clearly strong enough to have thrown him. The younger son, though, is the one who is possessed, quote unquote, by this demon. His eyes rolled into his head, and he started talking in like a deep, strange voice. There's a documentary, quote unquote documentary, called Demon House, where they do a reenactment of it, and it does come across as very silly, like a child trying to like mimic what a demon would sound like. Right. But I suppose he is a child. That's what his vocal cords would do. So his eyes rolled into his head and he uttered, "It's time to die and I'll kill you," to his family. He attacked his grandmother while having a weird smile on his face. The 12-year-old claimed to levitate while sleeping, while a friend was sleeping over. Apparently, the friend and Latoya then prayed over her until the 12-year-old returned to bed. And the daughter had no memory of this incident. The friend's testimony about this has never like been revealed, which is odd since the friend was apparently, involved with the prayer. But I suppose since they were children, children aren't often, their names aren't given away to the media or courts or whomever. So Latoya was getting fed up at this point because, things are starting to get scary in her house. There's things that are unexplained. So she calls their doctor. And when their doctor came to the house, he described the family's behavior as delusional. And someone in his office reported the call to law enforcement.
Right. Department of Children and Families.
Yes, because as a doctor, that's your duty. Right. If there's a sign of abuse or some sort of instance like this, like for them, it looks like psychosis, they have to report it because it's a danger to the family. So in his notes, the physician noted that the children had irregular school attendance, which Latoya blamed on the haunts. The landlord, who was also spoken to, noted that the family was behind on rent payments, and the landlord was like, well, clearly there's no possession here. They just don't want to pay their rent. Right. And so they're blaming outside force that they don't have control over, which, I could see not wanting to pay your rent while you're in the middle of a demonic haunting. But so this kind of makes it a little like, who's telling the truth? Right. Is there really a haunting? is Latoya and her family trying to keep their safe home and not be unhoused, but when they can't pay rent? What's going on? So law enforcement takes the kids to the hospital. And the 7-year-old was thrashing and screaming the entire time they were in there. And the Department of Children's Services, DCS, got involved in 2012 because they believed that the children were performing signs of exorcism to appease their mom. Like their mom was kind of giving them like hints to be like, hey, I need you to do these things. If you do these things, you get attention, and that is good. And I know that that's come up in like, was it Amityville where that was a thing?
And also, that goes all the way back to Salem witch trials where that might have been a thing. You know, it's
because then you're getting this kind of attention that you want instead of this other attention that you don't want.
Right.
Like the witchcraft trials, it was, hey, pay attention to this person who's doing something and not to me who's doing this other thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, pushing blame.
Yep.
So then the national newspapers, of course, caught wind of this story and started getting involved. And they stated that a DCS agent told one of the newspapers said that a DCS agent told them that they saw the youngest boy walk up the wall backward and flip over to land back on his feet.
Yep. That's
the
famous thing from this case.
Yes. And if you watch Demon House, there is a silly little reenactment of it. But it also shows how silly it is because as this is happening, the boy is holding his grandmother's hand. So he's not just, walking backward up the wall and doing a flip. He is holding on to his grandmother, bracing, and then jumping.
Yeah.
So it could just be, of his own volition with her assistance, not demonic. But notably, the police captain believed that the paranormal activity was occurring. He believed wholeheartedly that this was an actual paranormal experience.
Yeah, he went in as a skeptic and came out a believer. He said, he went the first few times I've talked to him. He said that he went the first few times just thinking typical domestic case. He was just going to be going for, people making reasons to avoid being evicted.
Yeah.
They're complaining about flies or complaining about all this stuff so that they don't have to pay the rent. And then he just said it was some of the scariest stuff he'd ever seen. So,
yeah. And he was the most interesting part of the documentary too, because he was like, he had to go into the house and you could tell that it like shook him, the idea of going back in there. But he had like the most insight about it too. So he was a really interesting person because you'd think he would align with more of like what DCS says or what the newspaper said, but he experienced it and he was like, that changed my whole life. This was a haunting.
I want to say his name was like Captain Austin. And
yeah, that sounds right.
I know he was like a 30 some odd year vet with Indianapolis Police Report. And he just was like, he was convinced it was a way to make money. And then he just totally changed everything. He was one of those guys I've never seen a policeman shook like that before. So when we brought it back up to him, he was just like, I was like, wow.
But I couldn't find anything to like determine if anything happened to him specifically in the house.
No, he saw the remnants. And according to when I talked to him, he just said when he talked to the kids, it was like talking to people who've been through a war. And he's talked to gang kids. He's talked to drug dependent kids who were born into drug dependent families and all that. He's like, I'd never seen trauma like this.
Yeah.
So,
And it's in the documentary, it's clear that they are still shaken by what has happened. They will not go near the house. They will not discuss the house. They will not anything associated with the house is a no-go.
mm,
And if anyone in their family does interact with someone related to the house, they're no longer allowed in their house.
right.
Because I think like Latoya's brother goes with, we're bearing the lead here, goes with Zach Baggins to the house.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He doesn't even go to the house, I don't think. I think
Oh,
he just goes and talks to Zach in the
okay.
car.
Yeah.
And that's enough where they're like, okay, you can't come back in the house until like you've been cleared of this
Yeah.
energy. And that's just being near Zach Baggins, who is near your house. So the family hires a reverend to perform an exorcism in 2012.
Yeah. They tried
During
it
his
in different churches first, if I recall. And this
yeah, it does seem like
first
it's
one that
really
actually
difficult.
replies. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
Most churches don't want to deal with it because
yeah,
honestly, they're acknowledging stuff that most churches don't even want to admit exists.
yeah, and it's bad PR too if something bad happens.
Right.
Like imagine it not go well, and then they're like, "Well,
Oh, and you're the one who goes in and I exercise the house, and then the next person walks in and gets hit in the face with a frying pan. Guess what? You know,
yeah,
you're the guys. Well, your God's not strong enough to defeat it.
exactly, PR nightmare."
No win. It's a no
Yeah,
win.
there is a no win, because no one like we watch Evil. There's
Yeah.
to do an exorcism, you have to meet all of these different categories. And I know it's fiction. I know it's not
No, but it's
real.
based on real
Yeah,
policies. So
yeah. Because there's policies involved, there's politics involved, there's
and mental health, you know, because
yeah,
they can show the same signs.
yeah. So the Reverend, his name is Michael Magano.
Mhm.
I think that's how you pronounce it, Magano. Maginot. He indicated that the family was tormented by demons, and he would perform 3 exorcisms in both English and Latin, one of which was performed specifically on Latoya, which kind of makes me think, is she the source of it? Which is odd because most of the things aren't happening to her. They're happening mostly to the younger kids.
Yeah. But
And but she is, you know, the matriarch of the family. So maybe she brought something in, or something clung to her when they moved into the house.
and many of these cases where exorcisms are involved, it's attached to everyone in the
Yeah,
household, and that's because it's an infestation, and that's
right.
what it does is it spreads. It's like a disease, and yeah, one's the patient zero, but then the others get the minors. And if it's flies, and we're talking with our prince of demons, he'd be happy to hand out a few counts and viscounts and some barons to come in there. Sure.
It's a whole demon party in this house.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, one of the clairvoyants, because as they were going out to church, they also reached out to like paranormal community. They did the right thing. And a couple clairvoyants came out there, and the famous quote about this case is that there are over 200 demons in that house.
That's so many demons. It's not a 200 demon house.
Like that house has got maybe 1 bedroom, 2.
Yeah, it has like 2 bedrooms. That's
1
like
bathroom. Come on, I grew up in that house.
1 or 2 demons, not 200.
Yeah.
It always weirds me out when they start pulling out numbers like that. Like that's in the pantheon of demons. 200 is a lot.
Yes. Because there's supposed to be how many, as we know from our numbers?
Is there 666?
Yeah. Named demons. Now they have legions under them. Those are minor demons, but there are 666 major demons, according to certain numerical things. But that's also, again,
which is odd. Why would 200 of them be in this one house?
I've heard 999, but we'll see.
So in 2012, the latter half of 2012, the family moves to Indianapolis. And when they moved to Indianapolis, everything stops.
Stopped. Yeah.
For them, there's no more. The kids are fine. Their family is fine. They move into an apartment with her family, I believe. And from the documentary, it seemed like there were a couple different like family groups who were living in that same apartment building. So I think they moved to somewhere where there was more family for them to lean upon, which is great. After experience like this, I could see really needing that familial support to deal with this, especially because the trauma doesn't end when the demonic possession and the hauntings end. I'm sure her kids are still dealing with it to this day.
Oh, I'm sure. Of course, I love that she lived there with her mother, whose last name was Campbell. Rosa, I think.
Rosa.
And I loved when they asked her about all this. She's like, oh, I'm protected. And they just said, how are you protected? And she's just like, I am. I was born with it. I'm like, so that's what it doesn't affect her.
So confident.
I'm like, must be nice. 200 demons, and she's whatever.
She's like, it's fine. Look, the kid's doing flips on the wall, but it's fine. He can hold my hand while he's flipping.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we should take a quick break, and when we come back, I will tell you about some other people's opinions on this case. And we're back.
Hey.
Yay.
So, all right. So kids are doing backflips, but now they're in Indianapolis and all is well. Or is it? So.
It seems like all is well. But this is where we go into the more, did it happen? Did it not happen? Because of course, when we have someone associated with this case, like Mr. Zach Baggins,
what?
The most honest man in the world.
Oh, he's attached, and it is solid gospel. Wait, no.
He is the paragon of truth. That we start getting into. So there is a man. His name is Joe Nickel from the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. He has debunked a lot of things about this case. He says he had experience as a stage magician, a carnival pitchman, a blackjack dealer, and a blackjack God, I can't talk today. And a blackjack dealer. So he knows how to swindle and pinpoint a scam.
Yep.
He's also a paranormal investigator, author, and an instructor.
Yep.
So Nickel, alongside the CSI, debunked many claims like many famous paranormal claims, like a diary supposedly penned by James Maybrick, who claimed he was Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
The Shroud of Turin. Yeah. He Nickel created a credible copy with materials available during the 14th century.
Yep.
And not to get political, but he also famously got into an argument with Ed Warren during an interview on the Sally Jesse Raphael show in 1992.
Quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't read much about it, so I'm not sure what they argued about.
The usual suspect. It was mostly about Amityville, and how it might have not actually happened, and that's Ed's one of his famous cases. So we can't have that.
Yeah, Ed's not gonna say that. He's gonna say it's the most important best case, and it definitely happened.
But anyway, what did Mr. Nickel say about this?
So Nickel says Nickel notes that he is not simply a skeptic. His quote is, "I don't like debunkers and I don't like dismissers. No. People who are just trying to say, oh, humbug. These people were probably drunk or hoaxing. If I'm studying vampires, I don't have to believe they exist to talk about the history of vampires, the cultural and literary history. There are many aspects, all worthy of scholarly discussion." Regarding this haunting in Gary, Indiana, Nickel made notes of the following. LaToya describes the aforementioned levitation as being snatched up, which Nichols says sounds a whole lot like the girl throwing herself upward instead of being lifted by
Lifted
something.
slowly, yep.
And isn't that also in Amityville where they're like levitating, jumping on the bed or levitating, and then they're like, oh, they're levitating, and they're like, no, they're jumping on the bed.
Again, back to Enfield.
Yes, Enfield, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. In regards to the child walking up the wall, Nichol reports that the child's grandmother was holding his hand, so that, helped him do a little flip. So he's basically like, yeah, it kind of just seems like
these are carny tricks.
Hoax. Yeah. And Mark, I heard that about a instance where some children may or may not have broken into the empty house.
Yeah, it sat empty for a little while after this. And I have a report where a couple kids got into the demon house back when it was called the 200 Demon House. And they had heard the stories and everything. And of course it was, it's the haunted house. You go by it, and, and you dare each other to go in, and somebody figured out how to get in. And they just said it was a creepy place, that it wasn't anything. But they found an altar in the basement. And they said it was like a white sheet, and it had a candle on it and a statue of Mary. And they said it looked like something like from a nativity scene, like a Jesus on it. And there was a Bible on it. And they said that scared them more than anything else, because that meant somebody had been down there and set something up down there. But that was, a couple kids who'd grown up in the area. And they said that it got bulldozed. So the house isn't there anymore. So
I wonder who did that. I wonder who bulldozed the house.
The Zach documentary, right?
Yes, so. Demon House, which I, unfortunately for our listeners, watched approximately 50% of and had to stop because it was not great.
What?
So,
how the master showman couldn't put on
I know. Show? You'd think that someone who was a master showman would make a beautiful, wonderful documentary. And while the cinematography was top notch, he definitely hired a camera guy. It was one of those
right?
No, this was a real camera person who did not have quippy comments to add to things, which was nice. The documentary lost me as soon as he goes, I'm going to go talk to the family, drives to Indianapolis while saying, I've been trying to call them and can't get in touch with them.
Yeah.
Goes up to the house, knocks on the door. They say, we don't want to talk to you, Zach Baggins. We've already told you that. And this is in the first 5 minutes of the documentary.
I think there was reasons, not just because they don't want to talk about the demon house, but that they just don't want to talk to this dude. So
yeah, I wouldn't blame them. I also would not want to talk about Zach Baggins about my demonic possession.
Well, I mean,
because he's going to put me in his museum, and I don't want to be in there.
Yeah, when you got DCS involved, I mean, now the big thing about this case that I know of, where DCS actually documented the backflip.
Yeah, they were at the place when it happened.
Yeah,
they were. I think it occurred at the hospital. The backflip did.
Right, the backflip was at the hospital, and I remember one of the nurses, like, 20 years, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And she's like, I was so scared, I walked out of the room.
Yeah, they interview her in Demon House, and she literally says, he flipped and I left the room. Like, she just was like, nope, bye. And a bunch of people, like, hardcore doctors left the room too. Like, it was so unsettling. So in cases like that, I'm like, okay, was it demonic? Or because if it was just a kid flipping, no one would leave the room.
No, I'd be like, wow,
they see everything.
They'd
be like, wow, great circus trick. But there must have been something terrifying about it when it was
they kept saying
happening.
different voices, different things
Yes.
like that in the DCS paperwork on this.
Yeah.
That's why this made national news. This was actually documented, where we've always say document, and
Yeah.
people go, well, where's the documentation? Well, here's documentation.
Yeah, from multiple sources,
Multiple sources,
DCS,
credible
the
sources
Catholic
that have
Church.
nothing to do with the
Yeah.
family. You know, they were
Yeah.
not paid by the family to do this, and in fact,
And the
they pay
family is
attention
not
to the
trying to
family.
get attention now. They are very much like, we don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, no, the
We
family has
escaped.
dropped
We don't want
all of
involved
this.
at all.
Yeah, that's why they were not talking to Zach. They didn't want to be part of his little documentary.
His little circus. Yeah.
Yeah. And now the doctor has talked about this a couple times since, and he said that it was a strange case, and he even said it was, he was scared when he walked into the house.
Yeah.
And that she had now he did not say he did say that he had problems of psychiatric clearance, so he couldn't talk too much about it, right? It was,
Right.
The basic patient doctor confidentiality,
Right,
and stuff
like
that.
HIPAA.
Yeah, HIPAA laws and stuff like that. But he talked about what he felt. But man, this case got a lot of things. And then, like I said, now I told you about the two kids who got in, and all that I had heard of. The only other thing I also heard about this was before Zach got it. There were several auctions on the property, and that it was not going to any bidders, but that was also because it was that area. It was 2020, and nobody cared.
No one was trying to buy property in like 2020,
right,
because
exactly.
COVID and stuff.
Yeah,
especially in like a less hospitable area
of Indianapolis, suburb, Gary, Indiana, right? Yeah, exactly.
And then our good pal, best friend,
yes,
Zach Bagans, decides he's going to buy the property. And in the documentary, this was the part where I shut it off. He says, I went into the house and I had the scariest experience of my entire life, but I'm not going to tell you about it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to show it to you. Yes.
I'm not going to show it to you. I'm bulldozing the property.
Yeah.
But which doesn't, like, we have had people on this podcast who have told us they have owned property that's been haunted and is frightening enough where you have to bulldoze it, which understandable.
Well, some of it was for safety reasons, because like we talked to one in particular who owned some property that was made famous on a couple documentaries. And then the problem was he had people sneaking onto the property all the time, and then,
which is a liability.
A liability. If you can get in there and you get hurt, you're not that they're not at fault. It's you, because you didn't protect the property hard enough, and that's, you can't do that. And that's
but with the case with Zach, why buy the property then? You could have just paid to visit.
Yep.
Done your visit. And then had someone else buy it, or leave the property.
There was more to this.
That it wasn't clear why Zach chose to make the decisions he made here. I know we have joked many a time about he likes to own everything haunted that has ever existed.
That's true. As we've said, so a lot of people think our good friend Robert the Doll is the best boy in the world, is at the Zach Bagans Museum in Las Vegas, because it was on one episode of his show and it looked like they had brought it to the museum. No, he traveled to Key West. They set up a set so that they could film him there. Robert doesn't leave Key West unless he's left, like, I think 3 times in history. And one was to Clearwater Beach for the first ever paranormal con there at the Don Cesar. And I remember the minute he came out of his box, that was when all the power went out at the Don Cesar. It was amazing. It was me and Jason Hawes were there, and we were just like, Oh God, they just took Robert out of the box. We still talk about that. That's our moment together. It's like, oh, Robert came out of the box and all the lights went out. But that's just it. So people, Zach. Oh yeah, that's that. One of my favorite things is his Dracula's mirror at the museum. I'm not that we're going to get into just debunking on Zach here because
I mean, we have time. We could go, we could dunk on Zach for a while.
It is, just remember it's television, right?
Yes.
But the Dracula's mirror is one I have to bring up every time, just because when they brought it, it was like one of the first episodes of his haunted museum show. They brought out the mirror and showed it, and he's like, and then they're like, "This is Dracula's mirror," and he's like, "Oh yes, Bela Lugosi, famously into the occult and all this." Bela was not a believer. Bela did not do the occult at all.
He was just an actor.
He was an actor. He had superstitions. He believed in vampires because they were from tradition of his family, but he did not. Yeah. He was not an occultist. He was very against the occult. His daughter said that pissed her off more than anything. And the only thing I could find on Dracula's mirror was this guy who used to have parties in Vegas and California would at one point hosted a party and it just said, "Come see Dracula's mirror." And that's the only Dracula's mirror I've ever heard of. And I think this guy made it up for a party, and that may be what Zach bought, but still, it's...
Yeah, because vampires famously love mirrors, Zach. Like...
Oh my God, just ridiculous. Ridiculous. But no. But anyway, yes, so Zach did a documentary about this. I didn't watch it either, so I cannot comment on the quality of this.
There's also another film that came out 2 years ago called, I believe it's called The Deliverance, with Glenn Close is in it. I did not have a chance.
That's the story of this. Yes, I was going to say that's supposed to be much more.
Yeah, it's much more serious.
Documents and stuff. Yeah, that's on my list.
Yeah, it's on mine too. I just haven't had a chance to watch it. Yeah. I hear it's very good. But yeah, that's all I have have our Exorcist and Exorcism.
The big thing I recall was, like I said, I read a lot of the children's and families reports on this.
Yeah.
And there was one point, the 7-year-old boy was like being evaluated by a hospital psychiatrist and determined that she was, that everybody was of sound mind, right? Mm-hmm. And now when they were talking to the boy started growling and his teeth showed and then his eyes rolled back into his head and he locked his hands around his older brother's throat and basically refused to let go until adults got in there and pried the hands loose. And then when they did that, this one nurse reported that she brought the two kids into a room to examine them after this. And again, the 7-year-old started growling and he did that. It's time to die, right? I will kill you.
Yeah.
And then while he was doing that, they said it took 5 men to break it up.
And which is crazy because he was what? Like, how old was he?
7 or 9? 7? Yeah, he's the 9-year-old. Yeah, the 9-year-old.
Yeah.
So this is this is the 7-year-old to the 9-year-old, and it took 5 men to grown men to break them up.
And that did seem to be what a lot of the possession related activity was, that boy attacking the other members of the household. Because I know he attacked his grandmother, he attacked his mother. So it was something that like clung on to him the most, it felt like. But I wonder if it's because, he was the youngest and he is the easiest to like, get your demon claws into.
Right. No, and that captain, I talked to him. It was an interview. It was like a group interview, and he was super nice. to do it with a bunch of paranormal people, and I got a
Mhm.
couple questions in, but he, like I said, he's become a believer now, which you don't see that for, we've got what, three paranormal guys we know were our former police officers
Yeah.
because they've seen some weird stuff. Our good friend Dave Spanks, and the oh gosh, he's gonna kill me. Guy who runs the Florida one. Oh, my brain is not there right now. I've been on his show a couple times. Paranormal Police. But anyway, that it's a common theme that these
Right.
cops will sometimes get into this because they see the effects and they can't talk about it, but they can use their detective skills to determine if someone's bullshitting them.
Right. And they deal with these sort of situations all the time. So if a situation that resembles a normal, like, domestic dispute kind of family situation then has this other element to it that they can't explain, I feel like they've seen a lot of things that other people aren't privy to. So if they make note of something crazy that they've now changed their whole perspective about after having like experienced something like that, I feel like it should give it a little more credence.
Right. And then there are, like I said, there are some other histories to be considered here. The history of the house, there were some crimes in that house, but that's in that neighborhood. That neighborhood has had crimes all around it. So nothing, of course, nothing's happened since because Zach got hold of it and bulldozed it. But
I couldn't find anything originating or like, because you'd have to think, okay, so it probably was connected to the house.
Yep.
Because they moved from somewhere else to the house in 2011. Nothing was happening to them before, nothing happened to them after. It had to be something that happened at the house.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything that made me go, there was something attached to this house beyond, the flies.
Yeah.
In wintertime.
And this was all 2011, 2012. And then, like I said, it sat till 2019. And suddenly, that's when, Zach comes in. So there's this long period, 7 years, where the house just kind of sat mostly empty in a bad neighborhood. And as I said, I have the report of the 2 kids who said they went in. I have another story about other people who are, saw some strange things.
And the landlord reports nothing.
Nothing.
He reported nothing before, nothing after. He said it's just a house he owns.
And to be fair, that's in the best interest of the landlord because
true.
We're one of the few countries in the world that requires, if your house is haunted, you're supposed to tell people when you buy a house.
It is really wild when you see a real estate sign on a house that says haunted.
Yeah, or one that says definitely not haunted, which I
think like,
mostly in New Orleans.
Because then you're like, okay, how do you call it haunted or not that you have to put it on a sign out front?
Well, I'm sure Erika would appreciate that.
She would definitely stay away from it. She would not have visited this place.
Anyway, so you can't go visit this house.
No,
folks. I'm so sorry. You can visit Zach Bagans' museum in Las Vegas, where he does have bricks from the basement, which could just be a pile of bricks, but it
could just be some bricks he got anywhere.
Yes, but
he has a lot of stuff.
He has a lot of stuff. It is themed very well, and I
did almost have the opportunity to go, and I'm upset I didn't.
But go a little ways out of town, head over to Devlin's Monster Museum, and you'll see some proper, amazing movie props that are spooky enough, and you'll have a much
and that are actually from the thing that they say they're from.
Yes, and you'll have a much better time. You'll be much more excited. So, oh my gosh! All right, well, thank you, Beau, for taking us down this wonderful place, and if you do go to Indianapolis, go see us at Indy PopCon when we're there.
Yeah.
And I would head up and go visit Lake Busco and go visit the Beast of Busco and see if
And you could
Charlie
always
will-
drive through Gary, Indiana, and go see where the house was.
Yep. Or you can watch The Music Man and hear the song Gary, Indiana, sung by a very young Ronnie Howard. So,
or you could do both.
Yeah,
it's up to you.
Do like I'm going to do and watch The Last Starfighter with Robert Preston, who was in The Music Man, basically playing the same character, Harold Hill, but as an intergalactic alien who recruits a kid who plays video games really good. And
there's a lot of movies like that where a kid plays video games really good and then gets to do something super.
Last Starfighter was the first, so that's where it comes from. So,
but there's a lot of them, Mark.
All right, sorry, Muncie Bunny Trail. All right, so with that, Beau, I'm gonna take us out if you're okay with that.
Yeah, please do.
All right, well, travelers, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this. Sorry to all the ZB bashing that we did there. We're not his biggest fans.
No.
But just remember, there is a difference between television and reality. As someone who's been on the shows and seen my stuff edited out of context, I see how it works. And just remember that. Now, we can't recommend these other movies yet because I haven't seen the other one yet, but I've heard good things. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. We'll put a link to Zach's documentary in the show notes. And so feel free if you want to go down this rabbit hole. Highly recommend watching Evil. It's
so good.
The third season's finally available on Netflix, but all 4 seasons are available on Paramount Plus, and well worth your time. But with that, just say if you move into a house and you see some flies, get out the raid, and if they come back, get yourself some pet spiders and they'll take care of the problem. And we will see you on the other side.